15 February 1963. Regarding a passage in Savitri in which Sri Aurobindo describes the universe as a play between he and she. This whole wide world is only he and she. He, the Supreme, in love with her, her servitor. She, the creative force. As one too great for him, he worships her. He adores her as his regent of desire. He yields to her as the mover of his will. He burns the incense of his nights and days, offering his life, a splendor of sacrifice. In 1,000 ways, he serves her royal needs. He makes the hours pivot around her will, makes all reflect her whims. All is their play. This whole wide world is only he and she. What a marvelous work. He goes into a completely different region, so much above thought. It's constant vision. It isn't something thought out. With thought, everything becomes flat, hollow, empty, just like a leaf. While this is full, the full content is there, alive. It's an explanation of why the world is as it is. At the start, he says, he worships her. Here again, there are no words in French. He worships her as something far greater than himself. And then you are almost a spectator of the Supreme, projecting himself to take on this creative aspect. Necessarily, otherwise it couldn't be done. The witness watching his own work of creation and falling in love with this power of manifestation. You see it all. And oh, he wants to give her her fullest chance and see, watch all that is going to happen, all that can happen with this divine power thrust free into the world. And Sri Aurobindo expresses it as though he had absolutely fallen in love with her. Whatever she wants, whatever she does, whatever she thinks, whatever she wills, all of it, it's all wonderful. All is wonderful. It's so lovely. And I must say, I was observing this because originally, the first time I heard it, this conception shocked me. In the sense that, I don't know, it wasn't an idea, it was a feeling. As though it meant lending reality to something in which in my consciousness, for a very long time, at least millennia perhaps, I don't know, had been the falsehood to be conquered, the falsehood that must cease to exist. It's the aspect of truth that must manifest itself. It's not all that. Doing anything whatsoever just for the fun of it, simply because you have the full power. You have the power to do everything, so you do everything. And knowing that there is a truth behind, you don't give a damn about consequences. That was something which, as far back as I can remember, I have fought against. I have known it, but it seems to me it was such a long, long time ago, and I rejected it so strongly, saying, "No, no," and implored the Lord so intensely that things may be otherwise, beseeched him that his all-powerful truth, his all-powerful purity, and his all-powerful beauty may manifest and put an end to all that mess. And at first, I was shocked when Sri Aurobindo told me that previously, in this life, it hadn't even crossed my mind. In that sense, Theon's explanation had been much more, what should I say, useful to me from the standpoint of action. The origin of disorder being the separation of the primal powers. But that's not it. He is there, blissfully worshiping all this confusion. And naturally, this time around, when I started translating, it came back. At first there was a shudder, gesture of stiffening. Then I told myself, haven't you got beyond that? And I let myself flow into the thing. Then I had a series of nights with Sri Aurobindo, so marvelous. You understand, I see him constantly. And I go into that subtle physical world where he has his abode. The contact is almost permanent. At any rate, that's how I spend all my notes, my nights. He shows me the work, everything. But still, after this translation of Savitri, he seemed to be smiling at me and telling me, at last you have understood. The mother laughs. I said, it isn't that I didn't understand, it's that I didn't want it. I don't want things to be like that anymore. For thousands of years, I have wanted things to be otherwise. 19 February 1963. The mother speaks of her translation of Savitri. I do it exclusively for the joy of being in a world of overmental expression. I don't say supramental, I say overmental. A luminous, marvelous expression through which you can catch the truth. And it teaches me English without books. Now, whenever I have to write a letter, all the words come by themselves, the content of the word. Just as I told you for moment and instant, now it works the same way with all words. I wrote something in English for a doctor here. But it's amusing because I had never paid much attention to the questions of language. The experience is novel, almost the discovery of the truth behind expression. Before, my concern was to be as clear, exact, and precise as possible, to say exactly what I meant and put each word in its proper place. But that's not it. Each word has its own life. Some are drawn together by affinity, others repel each other. It's very funny. 21st February 1963. The rapidity of the present movement of transformation, and with a smile, Sri Aurobindo told me something like this: "Do you believe now?" It was as if he were evoking the 3 lines from Savitri. God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep. For man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be not till the work is done. My blessings. 6th March, 1963. Sri Aurobindo says in Savitri, all's miracle here, and can by miracle change. What is a miracle? The disciple asks. That depends on how you look at it, from this side or that. You give the name of miracle only to things which cannot be clearly explained, or for which you have no mental explanation. From this point of view, you can say that countless things that happen are miracles, because you cannot explain the how or the why of them. I can't see what a true miracle can be, because, after all, what is a miracle? A true miracle? Only the mind has the notion of miracles, because the mind decides, by its own logic, that given this and that, another thing can or cannot be. But this represents all the limitations of the mind, because from the point of view of the Lord, how can there be a miracle? Everything is himself, which he objectifies. So here we come to the great problem of the way which is being followed, the eternal way, as Sri Aurobindo explains it in Savitri. Of course, one can conceive that what was objectified first was something which had an inclination for objectivization. The first thing to recognize, which seems consistent with the principle of evolution, is that objectivization is progressive. It is not total for all eternity. It is very difficult to tell, because we cannot get out of our habit of conceiving that there is a definite quantity unfolding indefinitely, and that there can only be a beginning if there is a definite quantity. We always have, at least in our way of speaking, the idea of a moment when the Lord decides to objectify himself. Like this, the explanation becomes easy. He objectifies himself gradually, progressively, and this results in a progressive evolution. But that is only a manner of speaking. Because there is no beginning, there is no end. And yet, there is a progression. The sense of succession, the sense of evolution, the sense of progress only exists with the manifestation. It is only when one speaks of the earth that one can give an explanation that is both very rational and in accord with the facts. Because the earth has a beginning, not in its soul, but in its material reality. It is also likely that a material universe has a beginning. If you look at it this way, for a universe, a miracle would be the sudden intrusion of something from another universe. And for the earth, this reduces the problem to something very understandable. A miracle is the sudden intrusion of something which did not belong to the earth. It produces a radical and immediate change by introducing a principle which did not belong to this physical world of earth. But there again, it is said that at the very center of each element, everything exists in principle. So even that miracle is not possible. One could say that the sense of miracle belongs only to a finite world, a finite consciousness, a finite conception. It is the sudden entry, the intrusion, the intervention, the penetration, without preparation, of something which did not exist in this physical world. So obviously, any manifestation of a will or a consciousness which belongs to a domain that is more infinite and more eternal than earth is necessarily a miracle on earth. But if you leave the finite world, the understanding of the finite world, miracles do not exist. The Lord can play at miracles if it so amuses him. But there are no miracles. He plays every possible game. You can begin to understand him only when you feel in this way that he plays every possible game. And possible does not mean possible according to the human conception, but possible according to his own conception. And there is no room for miracles, except that it looks like a miracle. If instead of a slow evolution, something belonging to the supramental world appeared suddenly, man, the mental being, could call that a miracle, because it would be the intervention of something which he does not consciously carry within himself, and which intervenes in his conscious life. And in fact, if you consider this taste for miracles, which is very strong, much stronger in children and in hearts that have remained childlike than in highly mentalized individuals, it is a faith in the realization of the aspiration for the marvelous, of something higher than anything one can expect from normal life. This need for miracles must be changed into a conscious aspiration for something which is already there, which exists, which will be manifested by the help of all these aspirations. All these aspirations are necessary, or, if one looks at it in a truer way, they are an accompaniment, an agreeable accompaniment in the eternal unfolding.